everyone, my name's Joe and welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for the feedback that I've got so far on my previous videos. I've definitely tried to take that on board. Please keep giving me that feedback. Even the positive stuff and the constructive stuff is really helpful. And talking of feedback, one of the most common requests I've received so far for these videos is to talk about how I got a job in the games industry, more specifically Electronic Arts, and also how to get a job, the broader advice on how to do that. I'm a senior recruiter at Electronic Arts and therefore have that insight into how to get a variety of jobs in this company and also in the industry. But before we get into that, if you find the video useful, it'd be great if you could like it, because then it would populate on other people's feeds who might find the information useful. And if you could subscribe too, that would really help me get the channel up and running and help with these videos. This is such a vast topic. I think about all the different career options in our game studios, thinking about engineering, audio, art, narrative, game design, production, and then all the other jobs that we have at EA. On our corporate side, positions in marketing, HR, facilities, finance, legal, operations, and not to mention QA and central technology functions too. But also the wider industry. You've got media agencies and content creators, both in video and written form, and for journalists too. You've got esports organisations now doing a ton of work, both in terms of the players themselves, but also the whole event creation and promotion as well. So, and I'm not even talking about the retailers, those who work in the stores and also help with the logistics of getting the games out. All of these people in these jobs, and there's definitely many more that I haven't mentioned just now, all part of the wider games industry. And it is huge. Looking at the numbers for the UK, the games industry in terms of revenue at the moment is worth about the same as film and music combined. It's huge. So when someone comes up to me and says, hey, how do I get a job in the games industry? Wow, that is a lot to unpick. The way that I'm going to structure this video is that I'm going to talk about my journey into the games industry and how I got a job at Electronic Arts. And through that story, with each point along the way, I'm going to embellish that and give some more general advice too, in the hope that this will be a really good video to help you at least get started and think about being proactive. I think it would be a really good idea to do a deep dive on crafts, so say a video on how to be a programmer in a game studio or how to get into content marketing, something like that, down the line. But I think this would be a really great video to start. I think for me, a really good place to go back would be when I was thinking about choosing a degree, because for a lot of people, that's really when they think about which angle they want to go down. Do they want to go to university or not? And for me, personally, I'm not going to lie, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I just chose my favourite subject, and that for me was philosophy. I love philosophy because it's a lot of reading, but also a lot of debating and putting your arguments across. And to be honest, just exploring some really cool and interesting themes in the world. So I went with that. And when I was finishing up my degree, I started thinking about what I want to do as a career. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what do I really want from a job? Again, I want to speak to people all day, every day. I love that aspect of my degree and I'd love to continue that. And I also knew I wanted to be in tech. In fact, at the time I was thinking I would love to be in the games industry, but I had no idea how I would go about doing that. So I went to a graduate recruitment agency and told them I want to speak to people all day and I want to do that in the tech industry. Naturally, they suggested software sales, had a look into that, and then someone recommended, why don't you get into a recruitment agency? It's very much sales focused, but you can also specialize in tech companies. And that's where I landed in my first recruitment agency role, where I was specializing in hiring software engineers, specifically C#.net software engineers in London. That's a great first step, thinking about what are the core things you want from your job. Throughout my time in recruitment agencies, I absolutely loved hiring for engineers and many other roles across the tech industry. And in fact, whilst there, I hired for many big companies, but also some smaller games companies like Mind Candy, Plumbee and Spaceape, which were a lot of fun as well. But what I really loved about working in recruitment agencies is the chances I got to really feel like I was part of those companies and helping those companies grow. And I wanted to take that feeling much further. And that's where being a part of a recruitment or talent acquisition function in-house, that's where it really led me. So I ended up joining a company called Huddle, which over 2.5 years or so, I did do a lot of the engineering hiring for them. But over 2.5 years, we grew from about 200 to 1,000 in that time, which was an incredible learning journey. Here comes to my point of where then I came into electronic arts. I already had a lot of the skills to come in at the senior recruiter level and to hire software engineers as well as other tech roles for the company and for our game studios. And so for a lot of people, they're thinking, okay, how can I get the skills to get the job? Well, also think about what your current skills are and how they can apply to a particular games company or studio. So I already had the first step. I knew I had the skills to be a senior recruiter at a games company. The next step is for you to think about what companies or studios you want to target. And there's really 3 things incorporated in that decision making. You want to think about who you want to work for, whether based on the games or products they make, whether it's based on the culture that you've seen, or any other reason that makes you want to work with them, whether it's brand or global reach and opportunities. Then you want to think about, do they hire people with your skills? And lastly, at the location you're looking at, do they hire those people? So for me, I was thinking about a list of companies I would want to work for. I then started to research and find out if they had talent acquisition functions, and if they did, whether those particular offices had recruiters in them. So I give a great example of Nintendo. High up there for me, I'm a massive Legend of Zelda Mario fan, so had a look to see if they have a talent acquisition function. Yes, they do, but most of the recruiters are in Seattle. Okay, I think I'll park that company. And so I bet you're thinking, how do I find out this information? I definitely take it for granted in that I use LinkedIn all day, every day to find people, to map out companies and their functions, to introduce myself to people for a whole bunch of other reasons. But if you are not a recruiter and you're not using LinkedIn every single day, you might be thinking, how do I even get started here? It's actually a really simple search function right at the top of the homepage, where you can filter by location, by the actual company and studio themselves, and start just having an explore and see who's out there. If you are already a LinkedIn user, you might actually have someone in your network who is already working at that company or can introduce you. By now, hopefully you have a really good shortlist of companies you want to work for. You know that they have the skill set that you have, and that also the location that you're looking at also hires people like you. So now you've got to network, and you've got to do that proactively and also sensibly. For example, for me, I had EA right at the top of that list, but I also had Microsoft, Xbox, Twitch, Ubisoft, Riot, Activision, Bossa Studios, Natural Motion. I had quite a list of companies that I knew I could get to in terms of commuting, and also I knew that hired recruiters. So networking can mean actually quite a lot of things, whether that's in person or over email or over a tweet or over a LinkedIn message. I'll give 3 examples of how I started to get introduced to the companies I just mentioned. I saw that David Barker, head of people at Riot, was speaking at a meetup in London. I made sure to attend, watch the talk, and right at the end I had an opportunity to just catch up with him one-to-one, let him know my ambitions, and went from there. And so then we started a conversation and went into the interview process. So on at Ubisoft, I had a former friend and colleague who actually used to work with the talent acquisition manager there, made an introduction, we got on the phone and went from there. And also my current team at EA, I reached out to them on LinkedIn. They didn't have a job advertised at the time, but I said to them, hey, I'm really wanting to work with you guys, and I'm just going to check in every few months. And we had a dialogue over LinkedIn. Yeah, that is some really easy ways to get started, but really you might have access to other ways of getting in touch with people, whether that might be local meetups or online forums or a Discord channel, whatever that might be. Use all the resources you can to make the right connections. And I do actually have a few tips on those introductions, especially as now myself as a recruiter at EA, I get a lot of these introductions to me, and I have to read through them a lot. First tip would be make sure it's highly personalized. Make sure you research that person and just drop in something that shows you've done your research. Whether that's you've seen they tweeted they're at a games conference recently, or you've seen on their LinkedIn they went to the same university as you. Whatever that might be. It's always good to start off with an introduction that shows you've done your research. Do check the careers site. Make sure they aren't currently advertising a role that looks suitable for you. And if they're not, mention that. Because again, it shows you've done your research. Say, hi Joe, I see you're not looking for X position on your site at the moment, but I wanted to introduce myself and perhaps I could be considered in the future. And then list 1 or 2 points where you think you could be suitable, or some key aspects of your skills. I highly recommend keeping your introductions to under 150 words and really think about making them concise and to the point. What I did with all the information about my networking is I kept a spreadsheet, and then I started making calendar reminders so I could check in with these people every 3 months to see if anything had changed or if there's any opportunities. And that's exactly how I got the job at EA. Also set up alerts on LinkedIn and the EA career site so that I was notified anytime they were hiring for someone in talent acquisition or a recruiter. I checked in and they were, ultimately they weren't hiring for a senior recruiter, but they said that there's a job very much coming and we might as well start the interview process now. So what happened was because I was already known and I'd been checking in, I was the very first person to apply even before the position was advertised, and we went through the interview process very fast. So even though it was 13 months from when I first reached out to my team at EA through to starting the job, actually when the position became available, I was able to snap it up just like that. And I think that's definitely the key here. You keep networking, keep yourself visible, keep speaking to the right people and having the right conversations, because as soon as something comes up, you can pick it up just like that. 2 final tips I will give. Make sure you're going to be really flexible on your location, especially if you're adamant that the games industry is the one for you. For me, I'm quite lucky in that I live in southeast England. There are so many game developers and game studios. In fact, I'm going to link a couple of links to some maps that visualization maps that show where all the companies are throughout the UK. There's another one that's global as well, so definitely check that out. I'm very lucky that we have a lot of games companies in and around the southeast of England. But even still, it's a 40-mile drive for me to get to work, and I drive on the busiest road in Europe, which is the M25, which is sometimes not too great, but I absolutely love my job and it's so worth it. Another point is to say that very first point I mentioned, I already had the skills. A lot of people perhaps don't have the necessary skills or just need to learn 1 or 2 things to be able to be viable for a position they really want in a games company. There's so many free resources out there that it's just so easy to pick up and learn. I also highly recommend making a portfolio and showing your work and showing you're passionate. For me, I actually had a blog already and I'm very active on social. I speak at events and I was able to showcase all of this in my application, which definitely helped me get the job. Thanks very much for watching. I really hope you found all of that information useful. I'm happy to continue the conversation in the comments section below, or I'm going to include my contact information as well, including my email, but also LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, however you want to connect is fine with me. Also, like I mentioned right at the start, if you could like the video, it means it just gets in front of people who might also find this information useful, and subscribing just really helps the ball get rolling on me promoting my channel. So I'd really appreciate it if you do that. So thanks, and yeah, see you in the next video.